Good to have you join us at this particular point in time, and it is time to talk business. We'll start by telling you that as part of a broader commitment to the Open Government Partnership, the federal government is embarking on a sensitization campaign to raise awareness, clarify the objective, and celebrate the milestones of the OGP in Nigeria. The campaign, which is being coordinated by the OGP National Secretariat, is in phases, starting with MDAs.
Today's session is designed to build knowledge base for you to understand the OGP in the public sector. And your statement will help us push this campaign to Nigerians and for us to sustain the results that have been put in place.
By the time we're going to display the action plan, you know that there are specific roles that MDAs will play. Information have their own specific role, different ministries have their own role to play. So you know from the ministry you are coming, your own sector, you see the role they're going to play and how they're going to play it.
The emergence of the new NNPC Limited has signaled a new dawn chronicling the history and projected future of the company. Key players in the oil industry say the new company is ready to take a leading role in the oil and gas sector. Lydia Sampson has that.
This music by Barry Art Alade sets the tone for the beginning of NNPC Limited. The company is focused on providing energy for today and energy for tomorrow. Unveiling the NNPC Limited of today is not about forgetting the NNPC of yesterday. The museum of yesterday is all about taking us on a journey to where it all began 45 years ago. It all began as the State's Oil Corporation, established on the 1st of April 1977. In addition to its exploration activities, the then corporation was given powers and operating interests in refining, petrochemicals and product transportation, as well as marketing. From its inception to the rebirth, NNPC has footprints across the value chains. Amongst NNPC's several subsidiaries are two partly owned subsidiaries, 16 associated companies, autonomous business units, as well as upstream company. NNPC operates joint venture partnership with virtually all international oil companies in Nigeria. This perhaps led to its former slogan, "We touch your lives in many ways." These resonate with key players here who believe the narrative is about changing for the better.
The best of NNPC is yet to come. This is the new best.
It's memorable as much as it is historical. And as you heard Mr. President say, when you talk about destiny, he is a man of destiny.
I'm sure this will turn around things. They will make more investment. They'll be able to raise more money and invest heavily in the oil and gas industry.
It's a huge potential that Nigerian can use for prosperity of its own people.
The beginning of creating the enabling environment for NNPC to thrive commercially.
It is about how we move NNPC to occupy the rightful position.
More agility, more, of course, operational excellence.
This is global into, a better economy for the interest of Nigerians. We know small ways, open the market, open the business.
For the first Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, enforcing best international business practices cannot be compromised.
Skills are change, you bring up new competencies in the people, we can train them, we have ability to do this.
For now, the expectations are high, with hopes that the new company will continue to unfold as Africa's largest oil company, as well as viable national oil company, delivering dividends to 200 million Nigerian shareholders. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says it has so far disbursed more than 50 billion naira for its 100 for 100 policy on production and productivity. The Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, said the Apex Bank is making progress with the initiative to drive the support for producers of goods that can be exported to earn the needed foreign exchange for the country.
Indeed, we are delighted that the raise to $200 billion is yielding good results. They are actually 200 because the data that we have so far, and I read it in the communique, we found out that we received inflows as of June this year of almost over $2.9 billion. And we all know that in the first quarter when we started, we disbursed 3.6 billion naira as rebates for those who have conducted export activities. For quarter 2, we have this morning just approved the release and payment of rebates to those who conducted export activity to the tune of 20 billion naira for quarter 2.
The 100, 400 and RT 200 are interventions designed by the central bank to boost Nigeria's export and foreign exchange earnings. And the Central Bank of Nigeria again has increased monetary policy rate by 100 basis points to 14% benchmark. Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele said the decision was reached by members of the committee to curtail inflation. Abolade Salami reports.
For the second time in 3 months, the Monetary Policy Committee of Central Bank of Nigeria has increased interest rates by 250 basis points. Members of the committee noted with concern the continued aggressive movement in inflation even after the rate hike at its last meeting, and expressed its unrelenting resolve to restore price stability while providing the necessary support to strengthen the fragile recovery.
The committee, however, expressed confidence in the bank's sustained intervention programs, noting that inflation is expected to abate as food supply improves and the fiscal authorities sustain its efforts to tame the legacy structural challenges which put upward pressure on domestic price levels.
As regards the decision to tighten losing or old rates, the NPC members were unanimous in their decision not to consider both loosening and retaining rates at existing level, with a view not to worsen the existing liquidity condition in the country and further dampen money market rates. While the Apex Bank increased interest rates, it however retained other parameters, as the asymmetric corridor remains at plus 100 and minus 700 basis points around the MPR, while cash reserve ratio CRR maintained 27% and liquidity ratio was also kept at 30%.
Committee resolved to increase the MPR by 100 basis points from 13% to 14%. Members were conscious of the fact that output growth remained fragile. However, not containing inflation now could erode the moderate gains achieved in improving consumer purchasing power and thus worsen poverty levels for the vulnerable populace.
To address the balance of policy objectives and development in the global and domestic environment, the committee resolved that the most national policy option will be to further strengthen its tightening stance in order to effectively curtail the unabated rising trend in inflation. In Lagos, Abolade Salami.
Well, that report gives us some perspectives to, on the recent decision to hike interest rates by the monetary policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. What does this mean for the economy? Is our talking point on the program. And joining me is an economist, Chris Kaka. Chris, you're welcome to Business Express.
My pleasure being here again.
Wow, good to see you.
Thank you.
100 basis points.
Yeah.
Did you see that coming? Did you expect it?
Well, for anybody who watches what is going on in the Nigerian economy, you will expect such. And this one is just about 100 basis points, which is not much, from 13 to 14%. I think after the COVID, there's been a lot of challenge with the managers of the economies of the world, even in developed economy. And Nigeria is not an isolation in this particular.
Yeah.
If you check the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Federal Reserve, the current inflation, the current interest rate is about a figure that is in the last 28 years the highest. If you go back to the UK, you see that the Bank of England is actually grappling with an inflation which has been the highest in the last 40 years. And for 5 consecutive months, it actually had to increase interest rate. And so if you watch what is going on, coupled with the fact that...
Same with China.
Same with China, exactly. Same with China, we just opened up not quite long again. So Nigeria is not actually immune to all of this, because we are actually part of the global community. more so the fact that the supply side distortion, which has continued to go on account of the Russia-Ukraine war, is still actually there. A lot of sanctions of them has distorted international trade, and so there's a lot of problems somewhere along the line there, and it's expected that both developed and developing economies have got to do something about it. The implication of it is that if you leave it and still let it fly, we all are actually running into a situation where we run into stagflation, where economic growth begins to slow down, unemployment begins to rise, and price at the same time is rising. So it will be a stroke of luck for any economy across the world now not to fall into recession with the way we're going right now. So it became imperative for them to begin to see how they can actually check the excess increase in inflation that is actually threatening global economies across the world.
What is the likely impact of this increase? Yes, there's a challenge. The global economy is still recovering from the effects of the pandemic. The Russia-Ukraine war is playing its own part. While you're thinking of bringing policies or implementing policies that will enhance growth, inflation, yes, is a global thing. What is the impact? And would you say Nigeria is faring better or would fare better?
First, let me address the impact. The truth of the matter is, if you watch what has actually, the inflation that is actually rising, which the central bank's rate is trying to address, is core inflations and food inflation.
Sure.
Core inflation has to do with inflation that relates to goods and services other than food and energy itself. Then you look at food inflation, that one is about 20 points, so thereabouts high, and that of core inflation is about 15.75%. Now this, if you look at what is driving them, you will realize that, for instance, like the food inflation, the insecurity is still actually there. Even when you are able to produce, to bring them to the market, that corridor between you and the market is actually not secured. People are even afraid to actually bring things from where they are, except you're actually buying at the farm gate, which is not possible for those of us in the urban area. You find that particular crisis is there. Again, is the fact that there's an increase in the price of fertilizer. I mean, a bag of NPK is about like 20,000 naira now, which is doubled. Yes, that was an initiative by the government, the presidential fertilizer initiative. But something went wrong with that particular thing. Something went wrong with it there, and it is important we begin to deal with it. So these are some of the issues. If you look at them, same thing with the core inflation. Look, the tariff energy crisis is actually there. Electricity tariffs have been increased by almost about 10% without the government announcing to anyone. But then the Electricity Regulatory Commission actually gave the DISCOs the authority to increase their tariffs, and they did from 57.2 kobo per watt to almost about about 60 thereabout, a 10% increase. These are the things that are actually pushing the inflations. So if you say, is Nigeria faring? I must tell you, because there have been a lot of economic stimulus in time past during the COVID period, the situation would have been worse if not that particular one. Okay. If you check the Purchasing Managers Index, which is to show you the level of economic manufacturing activity, it has improved. It has actually improved. So by and large, Nigeria is not doing badly in it. It's just that it's a trying time for all the world, and Nigeria is not immune to it, like I said.
Well, energy challenge, electricity, petrol,
that's correct,
diesel, these are commodities you need to run businesses. Election, 2023 election is just by the corner. With all these factors, when should we begin to see a decline in inflation?
To see a decline in inflation. If you go by the World Bank projections, it might be difficult. Just like I said, it will take a stroke of luck for most economies of the world not to run into recession. Yes, there will still be growth, but then it might become very slow, which is what the World Bank economic prospect has actually predicted. And so for Nigeria, it is not going to be any different. As the election is around the corner, first of all is that, look, I think it's important for citizens to begin to make demands on government, extract social contract out of these political office seekers and say, look, you get to the office, what will you do for us? This is the challenge we have on ground. You want to vie for this position, what would you bring to the table? Let's know ab initio before you get there what you want to do.
We usually have promises. Fulfilling those promises are usually a challenge.
I must tell you, in the days of social media now, look, if you said something 20 years ago and they bring it up to you, it just actually it kills your credibility and your chances of remaining in government, or perhaps having to come back again, is actually jeopardized. So it is important we extract the social contracts of all those guys, see what they can do for it. But meanwhile, government has to do something, because we are about going to, we need to do something to address the looming food crisis in Nigeria. See how government can actually bring some form of succor to people who are actually using fertilizer, because right now Nigeria is importing almost about $206 million of fertilizer annually. Yeah, the deal we had with the Moroccan government to actually bring, I think something went wrong with that particular deal. We need to do something about it. Otherwise, this year planting season, we might begin to face some food crisis, and that will begin to further drive the inflations what we have on ground at the moment. So these are some of the things. But then, I think by the central bank, as the monetary authority is doing their own, we still expect some physical measures to actually cushion the impact of what is actually on ground. Because the truth of the matter is, look, Nigerians have spent themselves out. Everything is expensive. Everything. Just like you said, PMS, AGO, rents are also going high. Practically everything is increasing.
And salaries are not on the increase.
And you know the funny thing?
Well, let's talk about money.
Yeah.
The central bank supplying more money to finance deficit. What's your take on that?
My take with deficit financing, I think I have a challenge with it. Many have said that, do we have a spending problem or revenue problem? And I think we have a spending problem. If you
in addition to possibly revenue problem.
If you have 100 naira, why don't you live within the means of your 100 naira? Yes, you want to expand the economy, so you adopt an expansionary fiscal policy, which is mean government spending more money to actually be able to rejig the economy, generate more employment, a productive sector working at full capacity, which is very important. But the truth of the matter is, I say we have a spending problem because here you import crude, you import refined product into this country, and you're also providing subsidy onto it. From the revenue you generate from it, which is not enough to finance your budget, you're also subsidizing it. There are so many instances, you hear there are water boards in some states, and there is no water in anybody's taps, and you're wondering, is government a charity? Yet there are staffs there earning salaries. Government really need to look into the way they spend money. The current budget is too high, I can tell you that for a fact. Something is wrong with the way we spend our money. You don't import fuel, at the end of the day, you begin to subsidize it again.
So, are you saying more money possibly will not answer all the economic problems?
No. You just be throwing money at the problem. It's not going to solve it. You only be throwing money at the problem. It's not going to solve it. So, borrowing more money is not going to solve, because at the moment, yes, our debt to GDP ratio is still within a manageable level, but I tell you that we are beginning to compromise the capacity of our children in future to be able to meet their own development challenge with the way we're borrowing money at the moment. And not in an election year. You don't approve of such things, because the money might actually go the wrong hands.
Thank you so very much, Chris Kaka, for sharing such deep thoughts with us at this particular point in time. The policymakers are out there. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Good. Moving on, let's take a trip to the commodities market. Oil prices fell more than $1 a barrel on Wednesday under pressure from global central bank efforts to limit inflation and ahead of expected built-in U.S. crude inventories as fuel demand weakened. CNBC reports that Brent crude prices for September fell 1.6% to $105.67 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for August slipped 1.5% to $102.70 per barrel. The WTI contract will expire on Wednesday. The equities market in Nigeria cancelled the gains of the previous day to close Wednesday on a negative note. The oil share index depreciated to 52,186.52 basis points. 238.2 million shares exchanged hands by investors in 3,814 deals valued at 3.336 billion naira. Market capitalization dropped to 28.142 trillion naira. Living Trusts, Nigerian Breweries, and UBA led the market activities in terms of volume and value. Let's now see global stocks update with Bosede Able.
Hello and welcome to the Global Market Review. Now, it's a green day for stocks this Wednesday. The bounce in the U.S. market overnight sets the tone of positive performance on the global markets. U.S. stock futures traded higher Wednesday as Wall Street tried to build on a structural average. Futures rose 0.14%, Nasdaq Composite 0.31%, and the S&P 500 also on the positive lane at 0.18%. European stocks also nudged higher Wednesday after a rally in U.S. stocks sustained sentiment in Asia-Pacific markets overnight. DAX top 0.10%, FTSE 0.23%, and CAC 40 also 0.37%. Shares in the Asia Pacific also soared Wednesday after a sharp bounce in US stocks overnight. The Nikkei 225 in Japan rose 2.67% at 27,680.26. Shanghai Composite top 0.77% at 3,304.72. And the Hang Seng Index also nudged higher at 1.11% across 20,890.22. Most African stocks also trailed the positive trend, with Morocco, Tunisia, Namibia, and South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 posting gains. That's the Global Market Review, and I'm Boss Sede Able.
And now a quick look at the currency market. And this is where we end this episode of the program. Don't forget, you can access all previous episodes on YouTube. Join us again on Thursday at 9:30 a.m. for another episode. Thank you.